that intro for some reason changed itself. Like it's supposed to go like the end of it, like give like a long, like to let you know it's about to end. And for some reason, it's just like cutting it off. So I have to fix it. So I apologize. I also have to
Okay.
apologize because yet again, if anybody watched the show Sunday, everybody knows what I went through to get on here. It happened again. So it wasn't the aliens. It was just internets, and it sucks. So poor Brad has been waiting. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much again for coming on the brew. If some of you don't know, was a past guest, and his group I admire, I respect. How they do things and how they approach the paranormal. Um, I I'm gonna just stop talking because I want you just to let everybody know that's watching. Tell a little bit about you, your background, how you got into it, and what's going on. Because the last time we talked, um, you were just getting involved with like government owned properties and stuff like that were asking you guys to come out and do your experiments, your paranormal experiments, and stuff like that. So that was like the last time we talked, and I know you can't give the information of where you guys go and what you're doing, but um, I would like to talk a little bit more about that and if you guys are still doing it and all that stuff because that was pretty cool. um, so I'm gonna shut up. I'm going to introduce you to the brewskis that are watching. This
All
is
right.
Brad Bradley from CPRI. And you can let everybody, I want you to tell everybody, what CPRI is and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, like she said, I'm Brad Bradley. I'm actually the research coordinator for the Center for Paranormal Research and Investigation, or CPRI. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit academic research organization that is dedicated to pretty much trying to find out what people think they see and hear when they think they're seeing and hearing paranormal stuff. We've recently been called a bunch of skeptics, and I'm sure Kenny Biddle would love to hear that. But we're actually not necessarily skeptics. We just follow the evidence. If anybody watches Gil Grissom on CSI, that's kind of what he says. Just follow the evidence. We follow the data. Wherever the data takes us is where it takes us. So that's what we typically do. We're made up of a bunch of actually, no, Maddie, we're not official debunkers. We just go. We're not trying to go out and debunk things. We're trying to find out exactly what's causing what people think they see and hear. And when I get into some of the data, you're going to really understand exactly where we're going with this. But we're made up of current and former scientists, engineers, medical professionals, police officers, fire professionals, and we have all folks from all walks of life that come in and contribute to this research. So that's essentially what we're all about, Karen. So you had mentioned something about the how we've been going to some government sites, and
Yeah.
that's we actually are still doing that, and we've expanded that quite a bit. We've actually just recently came back to came back from a battlefield in Central Virginia, where it's a state park, and they asked me to get the guys together and everything, and we went out there to find out exactly what's going on in this house on the property. Why, and we've been there a few times, and while we've been there, we actually were there with the Kling brothers.
Oh, Brad. Oh my God,
Yeah, Brad and Barry. Yeah,
Oh,
Barry was. I led them around to a lot of. I was a tour guide for them around to a lot of battlefields when they were trying to trace their family's footsteps in Virginia, and we ended up at that battlefield. But we actually heard the distant rumbling of gunfire, like heavy cannon, and we couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and it turned into a barrage, like maybe 100 cannons. like boom, 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 kind of thing, and we're like, what the heck is that?
Right.
And we're still trying to figure out what that was, because it wasn't Fort Pickett, because Fort Pickett wasn't doing anything at that time. We actually had somebody that lived right next door to Fort Pickett that had their window open and said, nope, they're not doing anything.
Right.
And then also we heard small arms fire at the same time, and in between the two, we heard somebody go woo, and then you hear a barrage of small arms fire happen. And it was the coolest thing that I've ever captured on a battlefield. We did get some interesting changes in the magnetic field down around where this one particular area where the battle was the worst. But we didn't get the spikes in radiation. Have I talked to you about that before, Taryn?
You have not.
Okay. Well, we originally we found that a lot of residual activity, what people call residual activity, but we call it non-interactive activity. We're finding out that based on the data we've collected, and we've got about 4 terabytes of that, based on the data we've collected, there's got to be a natural cause for this. It's almost like something is playing back when the environment's just right, kind of thing, because the environment is identically the same every single time. All right.
Like the same to each other, or you're saying like the same, like to fit the time period, the same, like what do you mean? Like it fits every time?
Well, whenever we hear something or see something that might be considered residual or non-interactive, the environmental data surrounding that is the same as the next time we hear or see something, and the next time we hear or see something, and that kind of thing. So we have noticed that, and we think there's definitely a natural cause for that. However, having said that, about less than 1% of the time, sorry, I'm reading Chris's.
Yeah, I think he said, I'd love to explore to see what other paranormal investigators do, and other paranormal investigators are different in the field. He's a paranormal investigator, is what he's saying. He's just saying that he likes to hear people's different, techniques, basically.
Yeah, I got you. The stuff that we do isn't really considered investigating. We run experiments based on an experimental design, and then we collect data, and then we write papers. That's what we do. Just like any other academic organization. My very intelligent wife is sitting to my left here.
Hi, very intelligent wife. Come say hi.
Come on. She's got a PhD in microbiology,
and
she's writing. She's working on a PowerPoint now on some microbiology. So, but typically, we write the papers, we try to do the presentations, that kind of stuff, to try to further the field. So people that are investigators, that are, that may be enthusiasts and that kind of stuff, might have the more better information for them to do what they want to do. So that's kind of what we do. That's what any academic organization does. And we spend a lot of time on that. And I believe it, we spend a lot of time on that. But having said all that, one thing that we found out is less than 1% of the time do we run into something that might be considered interactive, where a door opens, a chair moves, somebody calls your name specifically, something like that, something that interacts with the environment. And the thing that I find fascinating about that is that whenever there is something interactive, a lot of the times we're seeing spikes in what's called ionizing radiation, and that's the radiation you measure with a Geiger counter, and nuclear radiation, nuclear detonation stuff. We'll actually and we actually capture that, and a lot of times it's like anywhere from 3 to 10 times the background radiation. It's a spike that goes up and comes back down again. And if it stayed up, we'd vacate the premises, because you don't want to be in that kind of environment. But it just goes up and right back down again. And then the other thing we found too is that the geomagnetic field surrounding that will fluctuate. It'll go up and down right at the same time. It's the Earth's magnetic field. When I say geomagnetic field, I'm talking about the Earth's magnetic field. And then at the same time after that, a few times, we don't have enough data to say this is consistent, but a few times we've actually captured what might be considered an electromagnetic pulse, just like what happens. Whoa, my computer just went to sleep. Bear with me. You still hear me, Taryn?
Yeah, I hear you. I
There
hear
it
you.
goes. Okay, yeah, I wasn't moving my mouse very much, but I have a work computer, and it tends to go to sleep every once in a while. But what happens there is that the electromagnetic pulse comes up, and when people talk about how their equipment gets turned off, or their batteries die or something like that, a very high electromagnetic pulse will do that. And lo and behold, we have one instance where that actually happened to us. We were at a place called Bacon's Castle. Go ahead. Sorry, Karen, I didn't mean
Well, I
to.
was going to say, would that? Oh, I'm interrupting you technically, but would that? But my question is, would you consider that? And I'll to dumb it down because I'm not as technical. I apologize, but would you consider that like a man-made happening or like a natural or explainable thing? Okay, I
It
just want to
could
make
be
that.
it could be natural because a lot of times when you have particle collisions, when you have like explosions in outer space, like especially from the sun,
Right.
when you get those CME ejections, those things will produce an electromagnetic pulse, and those are picked up. You can hear it on the radio signals from outer space too. You can hear it when it pops and crackles, that kind of thing too. And hello.
She's from Indonesia. Checking in from
Oh, very
Indonesia.
cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool.
Hi,
From
Yashang.
Indonesia. But they the electromagnetic pulse actually happened whenever there's a nuclear detonation. Let's say like in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they detected an electromagnetic pulse, just like they did when they were testing the atomic bomb. And anytime there's a nuclear explosion, you get that, and it'll actually take out the electronics around wherever it happens. And like within 300 miles of a 1 megaton blast, I think it can reach that far out. So the what we found though is that it's very localized. Like right in front of a door that we knew to open on us every once in a while, we had a bunch of battery operated equipment sitting there. One of the pieces of equipment was RF shielded, was essentially EMF shielded, and the rest of it was not. And so we're measuring things, and the piece that was EMF shielded was measuring EMF on a sensor that was sticking outside the shielding. So what we ran into, we heard something running up there where this stuff was. So we ran up there to where it was. Every piece of battery operated equipment in that doorway was dead, except for the EMF shielded one. And when we looked at the EMF shielded piece of equipment, there was an electromagnetic pulse, like in the Gauss range, not milligauss. I'm talking Gauss, which is 1,000 times a milligauss, and it was huge. And it had taken out every piece of battery operated equipment we had right there. The interesting thing was that was not picked up by any other magnetometer in the building, which means it was very localized to the door only. And we're finding out, and like we have a guy that's Jack Trammell. He's Dr. Jack Trammell. He's a heck of a guy. He's the chair of the Department of Sociology at Mount St. Mount St. Mary's University in Maryland. And I saw Rachel Bradley up there. Hey, I know her.
Oh, she is one of the. She is like in my circle, man. She's ride to die right there.
Yeah.
I love her.
We actually, hey Rachel, we actually may be related. That's what's really funny.
Oh, that's cool.
But because her family's from the same part of Kentucky that my family's from, so that was really cool to run in.
That's awesome.
But anyway, yeah, it's pretty cool. Small world. But having seen that, we're starting to try to collect more data around that. And the problem is, though, you don't get interactive activity all that often. You just don't. Most of the time, it's residual stuff, that kind of thing. You hear a voice, you hear a mumble, and hey, that's my friend Alan from West Virginia, awesome. Alan Key.
Hi,
good to see you, Alan.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He is actually in the band that I was in West Virginia too.
Oh, cool.
Play guitar. But what we're finding out with the interactive stuff, we think that the data, the theory that's out there is that basically the data that we're getting around that just is the same kind of data you would expect if there's some kind of Einstein-Rosen bridge happening. And an Einstein-Rosen bridge is essentially, if you think of it's a wormhole. and when one of those happens, you're going to expect that kind of data. Now, we don't have enough data to confirm that or say that's actual, but that's one of the theories out there. It's like, well, wait a minute, maybe something, whatever's happening there is is more of a quantum physics nature kind of thing versus even relativistic maybe versus a spiritual. We can't say one way or another. We don't have enough data. But the data there says that something really is happening. There's something moving that door. There is something moving that chair. There's something yelling my name, which I've had happen twice. And
all right, Brad.
It's
like everything that you're saying, I literally would go home and be like, "Oh my god, we caught paranormal activity we caught it." Like, at what point? Like, what do you think? I mean, I know we can never say because we haven't gotten there. Maybe, and I personally don't think we'll ever 100% get there. But I mean, what do you think? What else would you have to be able to say yes, that's paranormal?
Well, we're not
Spirit.
saying it's always. I mean, it's always paranormal. It's just we can't say one way or another whether it's spiritual. That gets more into the belief structure kind of thing, and that's not what we're doing.
Right.
We're trying to measure things, and upon measuring things, trying to follow the data from the measurements to see where it leads us. If it leads us down a spiritual path, then so be it. It does. If it doesn't, then so be it again. It does. I mean, I personally have certain spiritual beliefs, and those I try. It's really hard when you're when you're dealing with the scientific method and experimental design and stuff like that. It's really hard not to bias, and I could probably see my wife smirking over here. It's really hard not to bias what you're doing based on your beliefs. It's very hard. Like if you believe that that's the ghost of your dead Uncle Fred sitting over there on the bed, then every blinking light you have is going to tell you that's the ghost of your dead Uncle Fred. Right. Now, I mean, we have to take all that and set it back here somewhere. And then we have to say, well, wait a minute. We have to look at all the data, and all we can say for sure is that something weird just happened. We got an anomalous voice. We got an anomalous sound. That door moved and it shouldn't have moved. Mark. I know Mark too. And Mark has actually been with us on a couple of occasions.
Me and Mark are like, we're like Facebook buddies, and like we pick on each other. We have laughs every time we interact on Facebook, so it's cool. I like Mark. I like his comments and stuff. He's funny.
Yeah, Mark, call me later about the spiritual stuff. But yeah, we've. But having said that, it could eventually go that route. The residual type stuff, non-interactive stuff, we're almost sure that it's not spiritual in any way, shape, or form. But the interactive stuff, something's got to be moving that stuff. I'm not moving it. You're not moving it.
So, but you still don't think it's spirit?
Well, we don't know.
Right.
We don't know. All we can say is that we measured. We picked up this data around it that might indicate that this cause might be happening over here. And what's causing that to happen, whatever's pulling the trigger on that could be spiritual. It might be interdimensional. Now we're starting to step into the unified paranormal theory. Are you familiar with that?
I want to be.
Okay.
I might be. You just be making like you might be just using a really cool word that I haven't heard yet. So let's talk about
it. Oh yeah. All right. Well, the unified paranormal theory is something like if you watch Skinwalker Ranch on the History Channel, that deals a lot with what might be considered unified paranormal theory. You have UFOs, you've got cryptids, and you have spiritual type stuff. Well, what seems to be spiritual type stuff, all lumped into one place, and it could be just one thing causing all of it.
Okay, wait a minute. So wait, why did you say we have UFOs, cryptids, spiritual? Well, what would believe? Like, so do you believe that cryptids and UFOs exist before you would say ghosts exist? I'm going to use ghosts
I
just
don't know.
for,
They might all be part of the same thing.
or
We
they
don't
might
know.
be the
That's
same
one of
thing,
the
just
theories.
different
We have
form.
a whole group. We have a whole different set of theories about that.
Well,
Um,
I say all the time, I'm like, what if it's the same thing, just different? We look different.
exactly.
I look different
Exactly.
from Mark, and we're just labeling them because they look different and they act
Yeah.
different. But what if it's the same thing?
That's exactly right. That's one of the things. Yeah, very good, Taryn. I'm going to give you a cookie next time I see you, uh,
Yay!
to go along with that with that other beverage you have. But we definitely don't really know enough to say one way or the other. However, it does look like, let's see, when the spiritual interactions validate the data, you may be onto something. I appreciate that, Mark. And we've had that. Mark and I have actually had those discussions on site. So, gosh,
So
Rachel's saying hi to everybody.
I know. So, do you believe in ghosts, spirits?
My personal belief set,
Yes.
um, I think there's a definite possibility. Let me put it that way, because I am a chemist, and I used to come from a big time skeptical situation. I came in pretty much the biggest skeptic in the world. I used to watch the Ghost Hunters TV show with when Jason and Grant were running that inn up in New Hampshire, and my my wife actually got me tickets to go see them in New Hampshire at their inn as part of a small get together with them up there. So I said, yeah, I'll go up there. So I went up there and I met them, and I thought everything at that time might be considered residual or there was a natural explanation for it. And lo and behold, I'm in this inn and I saw something I could not explain. Something physically walked between me and a window. I could see the outline, the head, the shoulders, the hat walk right past me and two other people in the room with me. John Zaffis was out in the hallway. He was leading that part of the tour. And we're standing there, and then lo and behold, something walked in front of me. And I said, I've got to know what that is. And then Grant put me in touch with CPRI, and I actually joined them back then. That was 2010, and I said, I've got to know what that is. So at that point, I started. Well, maybe there might be something to this kind of thing. And I know there's other people that are members of CPRI that might be watching that are like, "Yeah, I told you so. I told you so," kind of thing. But at the same time, though, I've my belief structure has been pretty steady. Yeah, I think that like I had a sister pass away just during COVID,
Oh,
and
sorry.
no, that's okay, that's okay. And but it was after she passed away, I felt like something flipped my ear
Is that
while I
something
was
you
at
said?
the her celebration of life, and I
Wow.
was like, that is something that my sister would do in a heartbeat, because
Oh,
it
that's
really did.
awesome.
And it's like, and so right there, that just tells me there might be something life after death kind of thing. And so, but I really want to know. That's why I continue to do what I do. And uh, that right there, having that, the family aspect really plays into that. I know my wife has lost loved ones too, and we've had kind of different things happen. And she's also a twin. And
Wow.
I'm throwing you under the okay. Anyway, she's a twin, and they do all the. You always hear about the twin things, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah, yeah.
one thing, the other one, they do that all the time, constantly do that. So I'm thinking about having the University of Virginia come and check them out.
Yeah,
Just
that'd be cool to see the research from that because that's interesting,
yeah.
Um,
Anyway, I diverge, but regardless though, I do have a little bit of a belief structure. I think that something like that could exist. But right now I'm trying to follow the data to see where it leads me. And I'm hoping it leads me the direction that I think it's going to. But that's just a hope.
so you hope to meet Casper, for lack of better description.
Yeah, I would like somebody like that to come up, stand in front of me, and say, yes, there
I'm a
is
ghost.
life after death, and I am one of those things. That'd be great.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
Oh yeah.
And then I could say I had him on my show.
There you go. Yes, exactly.
Oh my God. How cool am I? I had him on my show.
Yeah,
But okay, I had so many questions. Let me go back here. Let me try to get to some of the people really quick because
okay.
I have 7
Yeah, I
stars.
talk too much. You just got to stop me. I'll run off at the mouth.
No, I love that you're talking. Joe is asking, is there a site where we can read your papers?
Right now, I've got a couple up on, I myself have a couple up on academia.edu. It's a site where people can post papers and get them vetted and, basically for the public to take a look at them. I've also, Jack Trammell has a couple up there. I think we're going to end up with well, I'm not going to be an author on it, but I think we're going to end up with a 4th one up there. And, it's pretty easy to find us. You just got to look for the name. You can look for Jack Trammell. You can look for Robert Bradley. Look for Robert Bradley. There's a lot of us up there, but my real name's Robert. Everybody calls me Brad. And look for Robert Bradley. And I don't do things with pediatrics or anything like that. So you won't. Those papers aren't about. I did something on the how the GOES satellite, a magnetometer measures the Earth's magnetic field from 24,000 miles out, and we found out by accident that it's that when the magnetic field oscillates up and down,
Mm-hmm.
and over time, and then as it's going up in intensity, paranormal activity, what people consider paranormal activity, reports of it drop considerably. Mm-hmm. And then as it's going back down again, that's when the reports of it like skyrocket. So that right there is something we stumbled on by accident because we were looking for weather data. And it was like, wait a minute, this looks really reproducible here.
Oh, wow.
And so we did the statistical analysis on it. And lo and behold, it followed suit for everything we found.
Oh, wow.
So that we found that, and I wrote a small paper about that, and I also have another paper up on. Well, actually, I've got 3 papers. I forgot about that. I have another paper up on the whole residual activity thing, where it's probably a natural cause. That's up there, and then I also
even for 1 second, let me just say something. How cool is that the Earth can record something that happened in time and replay it?
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually what's happening or not, or if we're actually, there's always the bubble theory of physics where basically everything's in a time bubble, and as the time bubbles touch, you have these interactive things happening, or you have like you can look through a window and you can see something happening in time.
But even that, think about how cool that is.
Oh yeah, it is. It's definitely
cool. And to be able to prove that, even if it's not a ghost or you're not seeing a spirit, but you find that there's these little windows we can temporarily look in for 3 seconds to look back in time. It's almost like time travel, but you're not going anywhere.
No, it's pretty neat. I mean, because we have a lot of really, really intelligent people in our organization, smarter than me.
What?
Yeah. Believe it or not, they're smarter than I am. But yeah, serious, Taryn. Though we have some really smart guys, and they know a thing or two about various things. And thanks, Mark.
Yep, CPRI top notch, and I have known them for years. I've even had the opportunity to investigate that with them and learn so much. Hopefully, I can join them again soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. You need to reach out to me, Mark, because we can make that happen. But Mark just lives up the road from us, so.
Oh, that's cool.
Back on the subject of the activity. I mean, you have hard data. Yeah.
That's okay. I have my recorder and my trigger prop. I'll show up with that.
There you go. But thinking about Yeah, quantum physics. That's right. That's just one part of it. It could be quantum, but we're actually able to prove some of this stuff using relativistic physics. Einstein type theories versus the quantum type theories. Now, the Einstein Rosen bridge was actually kind of almost crosses the divide between the two types of physics, but because Einstein relativity, and then Rosen was the other guy that was part of the whole theory, and actually they put the math together about the whole wormhole Einstein Rosen bridge thing.
Wormhole sounds so
So,
gross. Would you say like wormhole is a portal?
well, I mean, supposedly, yeah. It's just like based on the math, though. If you tried to go through a wormhole, you'd be pulled into spaghetti before you got to the other end.
Ew, I'm skipping. Hard pass. Hard pass.
But anyway,
Wormhole.
that's just
Ugh.
one theory. So there's
No.
a lot of theories out there, though. We
Tom
can only
Nally
test one at a
actually
time.
Tom Nally actually runs and takes care of, and I know he's I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I apologize, a paid employee for Neshaminy State Park. So he does like a lot of live videos because he does a lot of the grounds keep up. Like he manages like all the vegetation that they plant and the flowers and all kind like to try to keep the park nice. So he does live videos and walks around and shows like progress and stuff. And he's saying that someone called my name, and this must have been when you said you heard your name twice. He said someone called my name during a live feed I did on BB3 TV. That's his streaming network in my garden that I worked on. He says I heard it during the live, but others heard it too. So
Wow,
that's
that's
cool
pretty cool.
for sure.
Yeah, I was in a place called Bell Grove Plantation on Route 301 on the Rappahannock River, and I was just we were actually ending the research project, wrapping up cable, putting it in the trucks and stuff, and then lo and behold, I hear what I thought was the guy that had the DVR system we were using. I thought it was him yelling my name. It was like Brad. It's like what? And then I heard it again, Brad. I was like what? And I go outside. He's in his truck. He's not
Oh,
even in the house. So that
that's
was that was
crazy.
interesting.
Now, do you
Any of
think
that
that was a because we think
interactive?
right? Do you think that was just an imprint that he left?
Mm-mm. I don't think so. It might have been. It could have been
Okay.
because that's a very astute observation of you. But the it could have been an imprint, but typically they don't. An imprint like that. Um, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to. My computer went to sleep again. I'm going to have to turn on mouse jiggle here. But but the it could have been that, or it could have been interactive because it kind of sounded like him, but it was kind of real tinny. So I don't know if it could have been either way. Could have been
I mean,
interactive or could have been non-interactive.
yeah, like sometimes like I flip back and forth, right? Sometimes I think, do we live the imprints? That's why, you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, I thought my mom called me, but she wasn't home. It sounded like her." And for me, I'm like, okay, is that, you know, you're hearing something familiar, so maybe is it mimicking so you're not scared, or what is that? Because I mean, I've heard my name a few times, and I've actually caught it on audio, so I hear it. We were just at Wildwood Sanitarium, and we were just getting ready to set up and to do an investigation, so I was putting my recorders on, I was trying to set things up, and I heard my name. And I said, "Did somebody?" And they were talking. They were sitting around talking about giving birth. I don't know what they were talking about. They were just having a conversation because we weren't investigating yet. Um, and and I hear my name, and I said, "Did somebody just say my name?" And they were like, "No." And I said it how I heard it. Right? I said, "Did somebody say something like, yeah, like I because just because they may not have thought they said my name, maybe they said something similar in a way that if I repeated it, they go, oh, yeah, she just said whatever. So I said it the way I heard it. And they were like, no. So I stopped the recorder right away, rewind, and you hear it. And then you hear me say it exactly the way it was said, and And that happens to me a lot because I record all the time.
Yeah.
And I started doing that because I'm capturing the disembodied voices that I'm hearing, or what I call a disembodied voice. I don't know what you guys would call that, but
We call it an anomalous vocal interaction or something like that. We have to use a terminology that's not real specific.
correct. Okay,
But
I get it, and I mean it's I understand it, so it's good. Like I like that, and it's also very um it's Switzerland, if you will. Like every time I turn around, I've been doing this 15 years, right? I've been doing, I mean, we went from believing in orbs to not believing in orbs. Things change as time goes on, and you remember the things you learn and everything and the first time you're on an investigation and you're like, oh yeah, that's a residual. We don't use that word anymore. We don't call it
yeah,
that. You know what I mean? You're like, okay. So what you guys are saying, I feel like we're calling it the same thing. You're just using a term that nobody could get offended by or say, we don't use that anymore, and make me look like I'm ancient because I'm not up with the lingo.
well, I mean, it isn't that. We have to use a term that's more scientifically accurate for
Right.
what happens for the phenomena. So that's why it's saying the term non-interactive. See, if you say residual, that implies that it's definitely a recording or an imprint on the environment. Non-interactive just implies that it's a phenomenon that you hear or see that is non-interactive.
Right.
It doesn't imply there's no bias in the name or anything. So that's why we
That's what
use
I'm
it.
saying. Yes, that's what I'm saying. And I like that. Um, would love to go to Gettysburg Battlefield. I've seen so many paranormal pics and video from there. I do have a picture from there. Gettysburg, I go at least once a month.
Oh, it must be nice. I have never been. I
What?
know. My wife has been to Gettysburg.
Does she think it's the best
I
place
have.
in the universe?
Do you think it's the best place in the universe?
She said yes, didn't she? Even if she says
Yeah,
no, she said yes.
as far as you know, she said yes.
It really is, and not just paranormal wise, and not just all that. Like everything about it is fantastic. But yeah, if you need to go. Oh my gosh, you need to go. I would love
I
to
definitely want to.
go. If you guys made a trip to go, I would love to just sit back and watch and see how you guys work in Gettysburg. I would love to see that.
Yeah, there'd have to be a lot of permissions involved because
Yeah. So, but you're
it
saying, but you guys have the resume. I mean, you could give it to them and say,
well,
this is where we've been.
national parks still don't like to play nice.
Yeah.
We but the stuff we're doing is with state parks and
Oh, got you. Got
they
you.
state government stuff. So it's nice too because actually we've been to one place that I can mention, the state park. It's called Chip Oak State Park, and we've collected some really cool data there. We actually have something that indicates that we had for years haven't picked up anything that ever indicate that something like a cold spot actually exists.
You
And
so you don't believe in
we
cold
had
spots.
no data. We had no data that showed that a cold spot ever exists until Chip Oaks. Let's go. Yeah, I'll go. Alan, come on out. We'll go up to Gettysburg. But the Chip Oaks, though, we actually had a guy, and Antietam, yes.
Antietam's only 30 minutes from Gettysburg, so you could actually
Yeah.
do it all in one trip. But you got to be in Gettysburg for at least, I would say, because when the next time you're going to get back, you'll be so mad at yourself if you don't stay for like 4 or 5 days. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot to see there.
So much.
But at Chip Oaks, we actually had a guy. He's actually his name's Aaron Colgrove. He's an archaeologist and he's a member of our organization. And he's up in
So cool.
on the second floor, and he all of a sudden felt like he was being touched by a cold hand multiple times. And we just happened to have temperature sensors close enough to him to pick up those cold touches. And you could see the temperature, negative dips in the temperature every time he got touched. It was the darndest thing. Yeah, that's always interesting.
That's
Speaking German
cool.
on an investigation, and then there was an EVP that answered my question in English.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to wonder why that is.
Yeah.
And we don't really even have any theories about that right now. We don't even try to say that we don't try to interpret what's being said at all. We just know it's an anomalous sound or an anomalous voice
I,
because linguistics is not our thing. We don't have a linguist in our group. We'd love to have one. And if anybody out there knows a linguist that wants to join a group, here we are.
hey.
But we actually have a budget now too, which is cool. But
Well, I think it's interesting really quick what he says because all the times like people you just automatically talk English and then sometimes you get a response in another language. But for Mark
yep.
to be talking another language and get a response in English, I wonder was the
Yeah, well,
response like did it answer your question? Was it
did
I was
they
just
have a
curious.
universal translator or something like that? You know what? Thinking Star Trek here, but
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
the the thing though that we actually ran into one instance where we could actually tell something was in another language, and we were in a state park that I'm not allowed to mention, but in the house on the state park that was built in 1760, we actually were in the main stairwell of the house, and as we're walking down the steps, we heard what sounded like female voices. And at that time too, we got changes in the geomagnetic field. There you go. We got changes in the geomagnetic field, and we got changes in the radiation and stuff like that, all up and down that stairwell. And then we actually heard that female voice. When we went back and reviewed it, it was like, wait a minute, this sounds like it's in French or something. And then we had somebody that's a friend of ours that knew some people that were in linguistics and stuff. We kind of confirmed that it all was um, it was actually in French, and it said it was like it was saying "good day" to you or something like that in French. And then we were like, well, why would it be in French? Didn't understand that. And then we talked to the head ranger for the park, and she said that, oh yeah, that house was built by French Huguenots in 1760. That's like, well, that explains a lot. So that goes right into the imprint thing, that we were talking about. That maybe that's what was going on there, or we were actually listening back in time to a conversation that was taking place. And for them it was like in real time, but for us it was in the future kind of thing. We could make our head hurt thinking about this stuff.
Oh my gosh, I know. Okay, hold on. Chris asks, what is the most active hospital or institution you have been to?
Well, we've only been to one or two. Scratch that. We've been to two. No, gosh, I keep forgetting because they went to a place when I wasn't part of the organization. They went to Waverly Hills when I wasn't part of the organization. But St. Albans Sanatorium here in Virginia and at Radford, Virginia. And then also we were at Pennhurst. We did the Mayflower building at Pennhurst. And let me tell you, that's the only time I've been scared.
Pennhurst is amazing.
We had we were up on the third floor of the Mayflower building, and there was no power up there, and it was pitch black. And we had all of our little battery operated equipment and stuff had lights on it and everything, and so it was putting on a glow in that little area where we were at the edge of the stairwell. And then we heard what sounded like furniture moving down the hall there. Or I heard it, and so I go. You can hear me on the recorder we had up there. Go downstairs, and you hear me tell the guys, "Hey, there's something moving up here."
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody else comes up there and checks their equipment, and they hear the same thing, and they go, "Huh." They go back downstairs and they say, "Oh yeah, something's moving up there." So three of us go up there, and we're all standing in that stairwell where all the light is, but we can't see down that hallway. So I step on the other side of the light, so to speak, where I could see in the dark and see a little bit in that dark hallway. And as I stepped over into that dark area, it was like something came down the hallway like this. Big shadow came down the hallway like this towards me. And next thing you know, I fell. And the other guys kicked their lights on, and they said that there was. I looked at the equipment. The equipment had all spiked.
Mm-hmm.
Spikes and everything, and it was crazy what happened there. And my hand was doing that kind of thing, So I went downstairs and in our HQ and sat there for a little bit before I could go back up there. But
Wow. And when
mostly,
you
most of
and
the time,
disclaimer, when you say equipment, it's not like equipment that we use for ghost hunting. It's equipment.
no.
Your
It's like
equipment is all scientific.
environment.
Yeah.
It's the stuff. It's the stuff like you'd find in a physics lab or an environmental science lab. It's pretty
Right.
much what
So
it
I
is.
just want to say that for the people that are just joining, when he says equipment, he's not
Yeah.
talking about REM
No
pods,
flashy lights.
computers,
No flashy
and
lights.
trigger props. He's talking about stuff you would find in, you said, a chemistry lab, right? And
Or a physics lab or an
or physics
environmental
lab. I'm
science lab.
sorry, physics lab.
I'm actually going to try to run an experiment on phantom smells too. You mentioned chemistry, where we're going to take these cylinders that are have a vacuum in them, and then if we smell something, we're going to open the cylinder and draw in the air to try to pull the smell into the air. I mean, into the cylinder, and then we seal it back off. Then we send it off for gas chromatography and mass spectrometry, which will essentially analyze it to see what it is. And hopefully we're going to be able to tell that, yes, there is something in the air that we smell at that point. Or if not, then we've got to go down a whole other rabbit hole and try to figure out why the heck did we smell that when there's nothing there for us to smell.
So
But that's a
cool.
whole other set of experiments. But
Joe Bryant.
I'm not saying that, Brian. I said that whenever that we had interactive type activity, like when a door opens or something like that, we'll see a spike in radiation. It goes up and then right back down again. So, Kenny, I think the equipment we use is, it's pretty much you can go get it from any science education, outlet or wherever you want to do. So, yeah, I'd love to talk. I've never actually met Kenny Biddle. I've looked at
We
stuff he's
watched
done.
the first show I had you on.
Oh yeah.
I asked him to. I said, can you watch the show? I said, I think you'll find him interesting. And he agreed. He agreed with me.
Oh, good.
So,
Well, good. Yeah, I'd love to talk to him because the stuff that we do, I think he might be interested in it. He might not agree with some of the conclusions that are made, but it's all science-based conclusions. We're not trying to say that, like I said, people walk into, and I hate it when people do this. It just drives me absolutely crazy. And I hear he's a cool guy.
he is. He really is. He's
Yeah, I'd
misunderstood
love to.
by people that are like
Well,
hardcore and hardcore, and they believe in the paranormal. I believe in the paranormal too. He's never going to change my mind, but we respect each other. I love him to death. He's like one of my best friends, and he's just very misunderstood. People think he's out there to debunk, but he isn't. So I'm happy you said that in the beginning. You're like, we're not out there to debunk it. Like
no, we're not.
right.
And we're being accused of that. And we're also and they're lumping us into the same bucket as Kenny.
Right.
Biddle.
Right.
But the thing that, the one thing I can't stand is probably something that Kenny can't stand either. And I don't want to put words in his mouth, but that whole thing with blinking lights, what is up with that? You put a piece of equipment, one of those made for ghost hunting type pieces of equipment on a bed, and it blinks a couple of times. And so now you say, well, that's the ghost of President Taft, because he's on that bed, that blinking light means that. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I don't understand where you get that. And
right.
Plus, a lot of that equipment that you get from that's made for ghost hunting, they won't tell you what the sensors are. They won't tell you what you're measuring. So you have no idea what you're really measuring. A lot of it is just interacts with electromagnetic fields in the room. That's all it does.
Right.
So yeah, freaking Taft came to you, really? Wow. That's pretty awesome.
So Joe says, fascinating topic. When we get intelligent EVP from a direct question, is that from a wormhole?
I don't know. I can't answer that. I just say that the data we're collecting is the same kind of data you would see if one of those would open up. But you got to think too, if a wormhole opens up, it should be, if it's a micro wormhole, it's one thing. Tiny, you're talking like less than a millimeter or less than a tenth of a millimeter or something like that. If one of those opens up, then maybe you're not going to die from the radiation and the explosion that happens. But the prediction for if a wormhole opens up, a real, like a Star Trek type wormhole opens up, you're going to know it because you're not. Well, actually, you're going to know it for about a second, and then you're going to be dead. But that's this kind of data that we're collecting is what you would expect to come from one of those opening up. We need to get a lot more equipment and a lot more sensitive equipment to be able to see if that's really what's happening or not. We need to run a lot more experiments around that kind of theory. So that's a whole line of experimentation that we need to approach. And we need to, we actually need to get a physicist in our organization because we do not have one. As a chemist,
so you're looking for a linguist
and a physicist.
And a physicist.
Yes.
CPRI is putting out some job apps, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. You can get your job application on Indeed.com. And no, I'm joking. But they, I would like Travis from, the Skinwalker Ranch guys. I'd love to have, because he's an astrophysicist. I'd love to have him because he's got a ton of data, but he's under an NDA, so he couldn't possibly share any of that with us. That's, as part of that, he can't talk about the data they've already collected because it's part of the TV show, which is a real shame. But it is what it is. Academia, a lot of times too, you'll run into that kind of thing, but not to that level as you do in entertainment. In entertainment, NDAs are what everybody, if you're on one of those shows, you got to sign an NDA. I signed an NDA when I appeared on the Ghost Hunters TV show episode at Bacon's Castle. I was down there with Jason and Steve and Sherry and Ben Hansen, Ben Hansen was there too. And I signed an NDA on that, so I couldn't say anything about it. I'll be the alcoholic.
Hey, you never know.
We have plenty of those. We already have a whole bunch of those. But hey, Taryn, you're frozen. Oh, there you are. I thought you were frozen for a second.
Oh, no. Sometimes I do that. People think that, and I'm like this because I'm reading something. I know. Sorry. I guess I could be a really good mime.
Oh. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, NDAs are the way they keep their secrets for until the episode airs. So you can't give up. Bobby Pettit. Really? Oh, I'm sorry. That's somebody we know from way back. And I was like, I'll have to call Alan later. But and Ron, you can join the alcoholic side of our organization if you want. That's fine.
Well, listen, if there's openings for that, he has a +1 because I.
Oh, there you go.
No, I really want to see you guys work. I would love to. If you guys ever went to Gettysburg, I'd be all over it. And I wouldn't interfere. I would just want to watch and see what you guys do because it's fascinating to me.
Well, that'd be fine. Now, you're going to find it kind of boring at times because we do a whole lot of passive monitoring.
Boring. I sit in the dark for 4 hours and just, people might think that's boring. But for me, I'm like, come on, let's do this,
There you go. But see, what we do is we set up and monitor remotely from like at least 300 to 1,000 feet away from wherever we have stuff set up. So we run a lot of Ethernet and we monitor the sensors and the video and the audio via Ethernet, on the other side of the wherever we are. And sometimes we get a lot of stuff in. Sometimes, hey, there's Aaron. Aaron Colgrove, the archaeologist.
Oh my God, I would love to have him on. You know what? I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was younger. That's all I wanted to do was be an archaeologist. And my mom was like, this is no disrespect. He doesn't have to disclose anything. But my mom was like, you don't make any money being an archaeologist. You have to be like really, really. And I'm like, but I want to be one. So I still continue to I love all that stuff. But I got talked out of it. So, Aaron, I love that you're an archaeologist. Oh, my God. I would love to talk to him someday because that stuff fascinates me as well. So it's really cool. You guys have an archaeologist on your team.
But he really helps us out a lot. He has done some research that is just outstanding. And he actually found some things using a drone on the property. There he is. Definitely a passion job. No money.
Well, that's what I do. I think this is all passion, really. I don't make any money.
Oh yeah.
I made shirts and I gave them away. I didn't even sell my shirts.
Oh, but Aaron, he does some drone archaeology, and he actually takes thousands of pictures and meshes them all together, and he saw like a circular foundation in a field at Bacon's Castle that they knew nothing about.
That's so cool.
And so he found that. And that was pretty cool. That was really cool.
That's really
And
cool.
also, he likes to keep us grounded, because if I go off half cocked and start getting all theoretical and stuff, he goes, "Hey, calm your butt down. Let's think about this." Oh,
Yep.
Ron didn't get a shirt, Taryn. That's all.
Ron, private message me your address and your size, and I will send you one.
Here you go.
So Tom says, so what do you think of Steve Huff and his machines? I have asked this of Kenny Biddle as well.
I try not to think of Steve Huff and his machine.
Thank you. That was a perfect answer.
I don't. There's a lot of drama around that, and it's like we don't need it. So we have a set line of experiments we'll run every time we go out somewhere. We know what we're going to do. We bring the right people with the right gear. When we were out at Sailor's Creek with Aaron, Aaron was out there and he was able to give us a lot of insight for that area, which was really cool. And it's also thank you, Tom. But we had other people there too. We have a guy, Alan Sloniker. He could be on here now. He might comment. I'm not sure, but Alan is a current police officer, and he also, he's great, and he actually goes out and interviews witnesses that have seen things in the areas where we go. And he's very good at it, and he gives us a lot of insight too, so we can actually tailor our experiment around certain directions, so we don't have to shotgun it. If you shotgun something, you're going to get a lot of data that you have no idea what you're going to do with it, and it's not efficient. It's not efficient use of your time. It's not. Basically it's going to take you months to years to figure out anything about that data. So what you do is you tailor your experiment towards a specific theory. And you do that based on the interviews you've conducted or the historical data you're able to collect, and then you tailor your experiment around that. And having people like Aaron, we have a guy, Rick Atrestein. He actually knows a lot about demonology as a study, and he knows, and so he can actually talk to these people. Also, he's a former police officer, and he might be on here too. He's in Scotland right now. Actually, he's with his wife on vacation.
He's probably not watching Paranormal Brew.
I don't know. He might be. You never know. Bobby might be. Bobby's our founder, Bobby Atherstein. But we have a lot of people that give a lot of really good insight into things. And
that's amazing. It's so good to have that kind of team put together. And
also, I consider every single one of them my friend. So that's very important.
Awesome. We have to, right? And you have to trust each other and stuff, So
I couldn't do this without having that group of friends, because I work with a bunch of people right now that I can't really consider friends in my day job, and they're acquaintances and stuff, but I can't really be personal and that kind of stuff with them because of the nature of the job. Whereas with this group, I can actually, when we're out, we're eating or something like that together, and we're starting to go over data, what have you. We have a monthly meeting at a restaurant here in town where we go over data and upcoming projects and stuff like that. And doing that with those guys as friends is one heck of a release. And I really enjoy doing it. So I like those people. They may not like me, but I like them.
If you ever find out that EVPs are anything other than spirit, I don't want to know.
Oh, well, I'm gonna have to say something. We don't really have data that says there's such a thing as really an EVP. The data we have indicates that it's actually audible, not a manipulation of the device, and but we just didn't hear it.
Right.
It's in a range where we didn't hear it, or we were too distracted to hear it.
Well, I believe that. I've always called it an EVP because that's what it's always been called, right? But that's what I believe. Right. I think sometimes I think that's why sometimes I can hear those voices and a lot of times I can't. but we can hear it on the recorder. Is the recorder picking up a frequency we can't hear? The same way dogs can hear things we can't hear, and cats can hear things we can't hear. They can hear
Yeah.
on different frequencies.
Right. That's
There's
exactly
another
right.
thing, Brad, that I found in the last year, maybe. And this is why I leave a recorder going all the time, because it happened. But I'll try to explain. You'll probably understand it with my quick, dumbed down explanation. So
Okay.
so I leave my recorder going all the time. And I also was live on YouTube. And we were at Kreischer Mansion. There was 12 of us. We were all together in the same room. We said, let's do an EVP burst. They do the EVP burst, but it's only like 2 minutes long, So somebody else has a recorder and we start doing this EVP burst. Everybody goes around the room and asks a question. And then we stop to listen back. Now, again, sometimes I can hear things and sometimes I can't. Nobody heard anything. We had April Brissette there. She's like, a psychic medium. And we had a lot of people there that have a lot of abilities, in the paranormal field. And nobody heard anything. So we listened back the first time and it goes around and we get to, we get through a couple of the questions and then we think we hear EVP. So Lourdes, it was her recorder, she rewinds it and she rewound it too far. So it goes back before this question. What was the family business? Right. And after she rewinds it to listen to what later was an EVP, you hear factory work. Right. But here's the thing. We never heard it on her recorder. Okay. So, all right. I told that story totally wrong. So we go back a couple of times. Well, I'm listening to now my recorder that was going the whole time. So the first time we asked the question, you hear nothing after that question. The second time when she rewinds it too far and goes forward, you hear the factory work. The third time she rewinds it, it went too far. We got to that question again. You don't hear it. So now I'm listening to my recorder and I go, okay, now this question has been asked 4 times. There's been one answer. I caught it on my recorder. Oh, let me go back on my YouTube live to see if I got it on there. Nothing. So it was caught only on this one recorder. And it was caught after the third time it heard the question, or, the question was played. If that had been anybody in the room, we would have heard it at least somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Even if we didn't hear the person say it in person, it would have picked up somewhere else.
Well, when you think about audio recording, because that's kind of stuff, is what I do as part of my day job, the audio and video stuff now, because I've gotten out of chemistry lately. When I work for the Department of Health, I'm now an IT and an AV guy. But if you look at audio recording, hello, West Virginia.
Oh, yes, okay. West Virginia. Sorry. Yeah, West Virginia.
Yeah, gotta love that. That's where I'm from. Go Mountaineers. But the audio recording, a lot of that it depends on the how far apart the recorders were, the proximity of where the voice was to the recorder. You also have to look at the frequency response of the microphones on the recorders. Are they all the same recorders? Do they all have the same frequency response? That kind of thing. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that, and it really needs to be looked at. If you want us to really look at it, we can look at it for you. We just need to know what kind of recorders you have, the distance around the room where they were, that kind of thing. And then we might, because it sounds to me like that the voice might have been closer to that one recorder.
Right.
And it just wasn't intense enough for the other ones to pick it up.
Right. Right.
I don't think it was a manipulation of the device.
Oh, I don't think that either. I think it gives more validity to something unknown answering the question, because that actually was an intelligent answer, because the family that owned the house owned factory businesses, so that was their business.
And that would be considered interactive in our world, and Yeah, we would really like to when we get stuff like that. That's why we tend to put like when we have recorders out around the recorders, we have multiple sensors to look at all kinds of different environmental data around the recorders, so that way, if we get something like that on just the one recorder, we can look and see the what the environmental conditions around that were, and then we can add that data to the battery of data we have for interactive type stuff, and then we could actually try to draw some really cool conclusions with that.
Yeah.
But that does sound really interesting. It's hard to what we found though is we haven't found something like that. But one thing we did find, yeah, one thing we did find was uh, that we would have these, one recorder would pick up something, and then we would have like another recorder close by. Like somebody would be carrying one as we're walking through, trying to do like an equipment survey or something. And then they would have a recorder like right next to them on the ground that was the static recorder in the room. And then another one down the hall a little ways. And then we would hear, like on the one that he's carrying, we would hear the voice or hear the hear the sound, like a voice or a moan or scream or whatever. And what's up with all the screams? We hear screams all the time. Doesn't
Really?
matter where we are. Yeah,
That's interesting.
it's like one of the it's in like distant scream, like way off in the distance. But we hear something like that, and then what we find out is that we don't hear it in real time. It just kept picked up on that recorder. So we check the other recorders, and lo and behold, it's on like one or two of the other recorders, but maybe not all of them.
Right.
So
That and that's
yeah, this
and that's interesting. Like I pick up a lot of whistling.
yeah, we picked up some of that too.
Um,
We have one whistling though, where we had a series of recorders through a place called the old Sewell Luggage Factory. Yeah,
concur,
down
Maggie, concur.
in Petersburg, Virginia, and it's an abandoned 250,000 square foot factory, multiple
Oh,
floors, huge footprint. And we were in there, and we had recorders on various floors, and you can hear somebody going just like whistling with their work,
yeah.
and then they go all the way, and you can hear it go away from one recorder, get picked up by the next one,
Oh,
and then
that's
it moves
cool.
away from that one and gets picked up by the next one.
Oh,
It
that's so
was the
cool.
coolest thing. So
That's so cool.
that's the coolest whistle we've gotten. But yeah, we hear those whistles all the time though, just like you do.
Yeah, like so that to me, when that happened at Kreischer Mansion, when that whole thing happened, like I was just astonished. Like I was like, how did this happen? How is it not on anything else but this one? And it wasn't on the original. It didn't answer on the original question. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't when we did the EVP burst. It was the
Right.
second, and it's just to me, I'm like, how this happened. So then I was like, I'm never turning my recorder off ever, you know?
Yep.
And it happened a couple more times. And then what started happening, because everybody's into this EVP burst thing. You know what I mean? So everybody started doing this, right? They do these
Mm-hmm.
2-minute recordings to try to
Latest
get
fad.
something, right? Yeah. I'm like, not me. I want recorders going all the times. I even leave recorders. Now it's a lot of audio for me to listen to. My end of my like going through everything. I mean, it takes months, you know, and I don't care, because for me, I'd rather capture stuff and try to figure out stuff than do that stuff. But so I'm happy people do these little EVP bursts, and when we're listening back, so an example would be I'm starting to find that like when we're listening back to them, because we'll connect them to a speaker, so it's a lot louder than just listening to the recorder, and we're listening, you hear somebody go, oh, can you make that, music, can you make that thing make make the music sound, just go near that and it'll start playing some really pretty music. Well, when we're asking that question during the session, it doesn't happen. But when we're playing it back, it happens,
Yeah.
and everybody's like, so then I'm like, well, wait, do you think that maybe the same thing is happening? Like they can hear it better because it's coming from a recorder, the same way we can hear it better when we're listening to the recorder. Like, why? Yeah, it happened a lot at Hinsdale. Yeah, we were like, why does that keep happening? Like, it's not happening while we're doing it, but it's happening when we're listening back. It's
Yeah. I'm with you. Now that you got to think too that maybe that whatever is doing that is like my daughter, selective hearing,
Oh yeah,
where
yeah,
you say it once and it doesn't take. You ask the question once and it doesn't take, but then if you ask it a second time, they're like, oh yeah, what? Okay, yeah,
yeah,
that kind of stuff. It could be something simple like that. If you want to believe in an intelligence in it, then it could be like that. But
yeah, absolutely.
the vast majority, Joe, the vast majority of the data we have, besides sensor data, is audio.
Yeah,
We have maybe 20 or 30 video uh, clips that are anomalous, but not a lot. And we don't do still pictures very often because still pictures are it's too easy to misinterpret a still picture, and
true.
so we might do it to see a difference between this time frame and this time frame. Like if you take a picture of a chessboard now and you take a picture later and it's moved, then we do look at that. But of course, you touched on orbs, and don't get me started about that. But the orb streaks, when people see mists and stuff like that, they don't realize that the mist is there already. It's just that the flash of your camera just illuminated it.
Right.
So there's a lot of that goes on. Let's see. I hear voices too, Megan, but that's not what it's from. It's they wanted to send me to a psychiatrist for it, but no, I'm joking. I didn't do that.
I feel like it's like we can hear voices better listening back, so they can hear better through the. Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: like I've been around, I've investigated with so many different people that have actually witnessed this occurrence. So, I mean, so many different groups. I'm an independent investigator. I investigate with my peaches. They're my group. If I were to have a group, Paranormal Peaches, but I'm independent. I go with so many different people, and I'm a part of so many different techniques of investigating and styles, and I love it. And one thing is that I'm grateful for is that I will hear something and I stop it and I play it back and everybody's like, how the hell did you hear that? We didn't hear that. So it's getting validated by different people. So for me to say, okay, listen, I can hear stuff sometimes, not all the time. It's not like I walk in and I hear everybody talking in the building that's not there. But it's happened enough where people can actually, you know, validate what I'm saying, like they've witnessed it for themselves because they didn't hear anything. But yet when we listen back, they're like, it's there. How did you hear that? And I'm like, man.
Yeah, I mean, because I have a 10% hearing loss because I played in a rock band for years. We opened for the Goo Goo Dolls and Joan Jett and the Blackhearts and stuff like that. And that was before you had in-ear monitors. And and basically, I had this big speaker. Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but
You were thinking that? No, I'm kidding.
no. But
I'm kidding.
yeah, and people are surprised at what I could pick out. But what I'm doing is I can hear differences in the background versus what the voice or the noise is. So, and it's really funny because only 10%. Yeah, when Alan was playing with us, it probably is closer to 50%. I blame him.
I honestly, like, for me, I want to go in and I am an investigator. I'm not a psychic medium. I'm not anything. I like to investigate. I like to, if I hear a noise, I go towards it to try to figure out where it came from. I don't think everything is paranormal. Also, I don't think everything can be explained either. You know what I mean? But I go in and I try to investigate. So, but I never get the chance to. I like to go into a location and I don't care how dirty it is. I don't care. Everybody's going to think I'm gross. I don't care. I like to lay on, I mean, to an extent. Like if it's a private house and they haven't cleaned in like over 2 years, I won't do this. But locations, like abandoned locations or historical sites and stuff like that, I love to lay on the floor and have my arms out, my legs out, and close my eyes and just in silence sit there for like 10 to 15 minutes and just listen, hear, feel, smell. So that during the investigation, if I hear something, smell something, feel something, anything, I can go, oh no, I heard that already. So I know that it's this. Or I feel like it brings me closer to the environment, whatever's going on inside there. Do you know what I mean? So it feels like it opens me up a little bit to what is happening or what's going on, no matter what it is, like, but I never get a chance to do that. Who gets to how do you tell investigators, like, listen, guys, shut up for 10 minutes. Okay. I need to do something. It's
Well,
group. It's
you
hard.
can't. I mean, we would. I mean, we've done some interesting things. We did great ears for the field. Oh, you probably can. We might have to tap you to do that because we have. There you go. You only run for bears.
True story.
But we have, we like my hearing is gradually getting worse. Dirt is good. Yes. From the archaeologist, dirt is good.
I'm telling you, I'm not scared to get dirty. I love it. I love the land. I love land and earth and all that stuff. So anyway, go ahead.
But we're starting. We have some younger folks that we're starting to allow to almost like to do internships.
Oh.
And they because we're starting to function more like an academic organization versus a group like you'd see out. I don't know. I'm not going to name anybody, but the groups that are out there doing the thing with the flashy lights and stuff. You won't see that from us.
Right.
And a lot of what we do is we spend a lot of time doing book research too. So, but some of these folks that are younger ears hear stuff that I just cannot hear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what did you hear? And then when we play it back from the recorders, we're like, holy crap, that was there. Good job, dude.
Yeah. And
so,
it feels good when you get that validation that you're not crazy, you really heard something, and people experience that with you and can confirm that you're not just, what I mean, that's evidential claims, what I mean, like, oh, I did hear this, I don't know what it is, I heard it,
yeah,
and it's on the recorder, you guys were there, you didn't hear it, how is it on the recorder, how did you hear that? It's my favorite thing to capture. I love EVPs, and I'm only saying EVP because that's what we call it, right?
That's just what you're used to. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing, I mean, we do a lot of stuff around, like we're going to be with the Kling brothers at the Shadows of Shenandoah event. We're helping run that with them in Gordonsville at a place called Shenandoah Crossings Resort. And Jason Hawes is going to be there and some other people. And we're going to, we're actually we're going to be investigating an old manor house on the property. It was built in 1840, I think. Or no, that one was built in 1730, I think. But after that, we're going to be back at Bacon's Castle the following month. We tend to do things to go out and actually collect hard data only like once a month because it takes so long to process that data that we can't afford to do more than that. So we're going to go do that and collect some more data at the old overseer's cottage at Bacon's Castle. And Bacon's Castle was built in 1665, and it's the oldest brick.
Being in a structure that old, like walking into a place that old, just automatically you feel like
It'll make the hair stand up on the back of your neck just walking in the door.
Yes, this electricity just goes through your body. You're like, I can't believe this.
Well, the overseer's cottage that we're going to go into was actually built in around 1710 time frame, I think. And it was actually originally attached as a side addition to Bacon's Castle, and they moved it. And then this other family that bought the place did another extension to it. But the overseer's cottage is off away from it, from like about 300 yards away from the house. And they get a lot of reports in there all by itself. And so we're going to go do that in July. And in August, we're going to be trying to remember what we're doing. Oh, we're going to be at a different state park in August because they're having issues with in the buildings on the property with contractors not wanting to stay.
Really?
And so we go in and we look at stuff. It's like, there's some creepy stuff going on in there. So then they know, and then they can adjust how they get people in there and stuff. But then in September, we're going to be at John Marshall House, the old Chief Justice, the original Chief Justice John Marshall. His house is in Richmond, and so we're going to be in there. And then in October, though, it's all education for us. We're lecturing, we're helping with tours and things like that, trying to get the word out about the scientific method and all that stuff, and then showing what we found using that method. And then in November, we'll probably go back out to one of the other battlefields, and
Gettysburg?
we're just going to. I'd love to, but they won't. If they, they're not big fans.
I
I mean,
know. But you
the
know what
people
you
go
could
out there and do
do?
this.
Yeah, but you could always not. I don't think anybody from the National Park Service is watching, but you could always. There's Brad. Hi, Brad. I love him.
Brad Kling,
I
the
love him.
man is on. Hey, Brad.
I love him so much.
I pitched the Shadows of Shenandoah event
Yes,
for
I
for
wish I
us.
could go to that. I totally would go to that.
Yep, Tim Shaw's going to be there. That's right. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
I was caught off guard.
Oh crap! Now I forgot I was gonna. Brad threw me off. He came on. I was like,
Oh, Brad.
Oh,
Daggone it.
Okay, so from your like data collections and stuff, do you find that going into the places that are 300 years old, do you get different readings than going into a place that's 50 years old?
Funny you would mention that. That's very good. It's like I'll send you a check in the mail, Taryn. Yeah, you're right, Brad. It's going to be awesome.
I
That
know. I
event.
want to go.
Huge event. We're going to be touring battlefields. It's going to be amazing. It's like really cool stuff. But the thing about that though, the older the structure, typically, if it's just been sitting there and nobody's been in it it's been abandoned forever and stuff, and you go in there the first time and it's really old, typically you get a lot of non-interactive stuff, right? You get the occasional voice, might get the occasional sound of footsteps or whatever, but there's no interactivity. You don't detect the footsteps with a geophone. You don't pick up the voices like speaking to you. There's just a distant voice, the kind of thing. So you get stuff like that. However, the longer you are in a site, the more often you go into a site, the more intense that I guess that non-interactivity becomes, and eventually you start running into interactive stuff. If you've been in there, if you've had a lot of people go through the site, this happened at a location called Hanover Tavern. You're familiar with Steve Dills?
Yes.
I'm on the board at Hanover Tavern with him, and that site up there. Originally when we first started collecting data there, it was all non-interactive. Period. But all of a sudden, it took a turn. They do a lot of ghost tours in there, a lot of them, all the time.
So even when they were doing the ghost tours, it was non-interactive.
Well, that was at the beginning, but now it's taken a real turn. The last time they've done all where they've done so. I mean, we don't know. It's just a correlation we noticed. If a site does a lot of ghost tours and a lot of like public investigation type things, and they do that kind of stuff a lot, like multiple times a month, 20 times a year, what have you, and they do something like that, then there's activity that starts to creep in there. Hey, that actually becomes more interactive. The last time we actually.
Do you think that people can self-manifest that stuff?
It's possible. And that's one of the theories, but all we can say is that there's a correlation between the amount of public events at a location featuring the paranormal versus just, collecting data, not really interacting, that kind of stuff. Yep. And Bacon's Castle's starting to show that trend too, because they're making a lot of, Alan, his family's stomping grounds. That's right. Up around Hanover Tavern. Mm-hmm. But all over the place, we're starting to notice that if you go there and there's not a lot of stuff going on in the house, then the activity tends to be non-interactive. That's just the correlation we're making. And then if there's a lot of public investigations, like I said, or public tours and stuff like that, then the activity tends to be, you end up starting to see interactive stuff popping in there. And that happened at Hanover Tavern. We had equipment on the stairwell, lining the stairwell all the way up the steps, and you can actually see it on video turn off one piece at a time.
Wow.
coming down the steps.
Oh, that's
And I
so
was like,
awesome.
whoa, wait a minute. And that had never happened before. And they also had some electric candles in there where you have to turn the bottom, they're battery operated. And they would all of a sudden turn on all by themselves. And you go, and the bottom had turned on. It wasn't just a short or anything. The bottom
Wow.
had actually turned on. You could turn them off. So something interacted with that candle. So
Oh,
we've
Brad, how do you not say
so
it's paranormal?
well, it is paranormal.
Yeah.
It's all
But I mean,
paranormal. It's just I can't say it's spiritual. I don't know if it
but
is or
what
not.
else
I
could
know
it
that's
be?
well, it could be uh, like an interdimensional being. It could be
Okay.
any number of
But
things. It
you're
could be
saying that
psi.
yeah, okay.
It could be psi.
Fair.
You never know. You don't really know, and we gotta collect so much more data on this. And I wish there would be so if we could if a tenth of the groups out there would collect data like this over time, we could actually share the data, and we might actually, in my lifetime, be able to say exactly what is going on. The problem is nobody wants to go that route because it takes a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot of bang for your buck, and there's too much of this.
Is the equipment hard to
Huh?
come by? Like the equipment that you guys
It
use?
isn't necessarily. It's not hard to come by. I mean, you can get those Geiger counters on Amazon. The any Geiger counter would work. There's we actually use the EDI pluses as for background data on temperature, barometric pressure, and humidity, along with some EMF stuff. Problem with that equipment, and I mean, I've already talked to Brad and Barry about this, is that equipment only samples at once per second.
Mm.
So you got to think it only samples then, right? Well, between those snaps, something could happen and it won't detect it. So that's the problem with it. But we use it for background, and it's actually picked up some interesting stuff. So and we know that particular, even though that's made for ghost hunting, we do know how those sensors work. We have the specs. We know exactly what we're measuring. It's not like any of the flashy light stuff, like the REM pods or what have you. It's just not like that. So but we use those, and then you can get those from I can't remember the vendor, but you can also get them on Amazon. The temperature humidity sensors, you can just standard temperature humidity sensors you can get on Amazon. Those sample at 100 times per second, which is great. The funny thing is we tell you if you're going to use that kind of equipment, don't use your cell phone. Right. Because your cell phone, even if it's on airplane mode, will interfere with that equipment. However, if you don't have anything else and all you have is your cell phone, this Android phone has 26 sensors on it, 10 of which you can use to collect the data that you need to do an environmental analysis in the location.
Interesting.
So, yeah, and there's an app you can do that's a data logger app that actually logs all that data, and you can get it out in an Excel file and actually do the analysis on it. So,
oh, really? There is a data logger app, and now a lot of people bash the ghost hunting apps. Now, would you trust the data that you get from an app from a phone? Like,
well, it's doing is collecting the data off the sensors. It's not designed for ghost hunting. It's designed to test your phone.
Oh.
All right. And that's what it's designed for. It's called Sensor Insider Pro.
Okay, I'm going to just write this down.
And I'm going to show you here. Sensor Insider Pro for Android.
Oh, I want an Android. But I'm sure iPhone
they might have it they probably have it for iPhone too, but it's Sensor Insider. Okay. And all it does is take the data from your sensors and log it.
Mark said he has a flip phone, won't work.
Well, Mark, I thought you were using the cans and the string.
So, do you guys try other stuff? Did you do like compasses and like odals?
Well, we can't really data log a compass, but sometimes we've since we've had changes in geomagnetic field, we might have a compass on site with a camera on it, so we can over time be able to watch that over time, because that's key. The personal experience stuff doesn't really help in the research that much, except to point us in a direction to collect data over time, if you get my drift.
Yes. you might not want to answer this, and I understand if you don't because you might have an unpopular opinion. I don't know. But what do you
I
think of
probably
the
do.
yeah? What do you think of the SLS camera?
There are too many opportunities for that camera to show a false positive. We
I
actually
agree.
ran some experiments with an SLS camera just to see what it was all about, and we could aim it. I mean, it was the darndest thing. The software for that camera is designed to see
Map out.
to map out a person. That's what it's designed to do.
Right.
And so, if it sees anything remotely close to that, it will map it as a person.
I agree. I can't. I hate.
So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of that,
I
and I'm
don't
not a
use it.
big fan of it. And just throwing in other things out there, I'm not a big fan of. How about that Estes method? Just not a big fan because statistically, all that stuff, if you look at it statistically, can be considered random. It may not seem random at the time because it seems very real to you at the time. But if you do that thousands of times and you throw that into statistics, it's just going to be not statistically significant that you get any kind of hit on the Estes method. So,
Yeah.
um,
I
I
don't
mean,
use.
it's
I've done it once, twice, and two different ways. And I mean, I don't. It's. I'm not a big. Now this is going to be bad for both the scientific side and the paranormal side, but I don't use a lot of equipment.
no,
I
you don't
don't.
need to.
I
You
don't.
actually don't need to. If you sit there with a notebook and listen and write down observations over time, you are essentially you're using your ears and your eyes as the sensors, maybe your nose. Of course, if you have some of our guys with you, you may not want to use your nose. But but you use those senses, and that's your those are your data loggers. Those are your
Right.
sensors, and then you're writing the observations over time. That's that's your data logging. So you're essentially a data logger. You're a human
Yeah.
data logger.
Um,
So
I know
that's
I've
what
had
you're
you for a
essentially
while.
like.
I know I've had you for a while, but I want to ask too because I know you the when we were talking about like over time a location can be nothing in the beginning, but over time, um, I don't know if you watched it or if you've heard of it, but you know how like they stayed in one location for 28 days.
Yeah, I saw that.
Um, now just the concept of it, not the show, but I mean just the concept of that. Um, have you guys ever done anything like that or considered doing anything like that if you haven't to see what you guys would pick up over time or see if it would change, see, what you guys could get?
Well, there's a lot of pluses and minuses to it too. I mean, the plus on the plus side, that gives us a lot of time in the location. We know the environment, we can control the environment, and we can actually collect the data completely unbiased and unaffected by outside variables.
Mhm.
And so we were able to do that. And then that would be great if we could stay at a place like 30, 28, 30 days. I'd like to stay, I like to stay at a place that long. That'd be great. The downside is that you could get tuned tuned out. You could start tuning stuff out and totally missing things that if you're there too long, it's real easy to do. If you're used to an environment, you start tuning out weirdness in it. That's why you go to somebody's house. You walk into somebody's house and you start hearing weird stuff all the time. It's like, what is that? It's like, I don't know. I didn't hear anything. It's like, well, it's because you're tuning it out because you hear it 24/7. You
Right.
know, um, but that same kind of thing could happen in that situation. So you got pluses and minuses. If we could just set up equipment over 28 days and not just have it collect data over that 28 days and not enter the environment at all, because entering the environment could change the
Oh, yeah.
experiment altogether,
Yeah.
just entering the environment. So if we could collect data for 28 days and not be in there and then just look at it later, of course it might take us a year to go through that data, but still
That'd be
that
cool.
that would be great. We've
That would
and,
be
and
cool. Like no people going in there, nobody going in
that's
there.
right.
Yeah, that would be
Oh
cool. That
yeah.
would be a cool experiment for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely would be. The people. The problem is that when you do stuff like that and you have to look at the data after, that totally turns people off. And it's like, well, that's the meat of this. That's why you do it, is to get the data. You're
Yeah.
not doing it for the personal experience because, instant gratification seems to be the name of the game nowadays.
True.
And you're not, and if you do it right, you're not going to get instant gratification. You're going
That's
to
why.
get,
Yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. I cut you off. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you're not going to get it. You're going to have to you're going to have to do the work. And like we tell my daughter who plays soccer and who dances, it's like if you're going to do you want to get to be the best, you got to put in the work, and that takes a while to do that. It's not, and you can't just walk on that field and automatically be Beckham. You got to have to go ahead and do the work to grow up to that. So
Absolutely. Well, and that's why another unpopular decision or opinion amongst my peers, but that's why I don't like the spirit boxes and all
ooh,
those
no,
things.
don't get me. Ooh,
Yeah, I don't like them. For one, if I can hear with my ears, I want to hear with my ears.
mhm.
And that kind of like messes everything up. And two, it's a radio frequency. You're scanning a radio frequency, right? How do we know? People are picking things out and they think that that's the answer, but it's scanning radio
Oh
stations.
it's and you could easily get bleed over from other frequencies and stuff. You
Yeah,
get a police car could drive by and you get them. You get a fire. You get an AM radio station because we actually proved that at a location once. Somebody had one of those ghost boxes, and I just keyed a microphone on a walkie-talkie, which wasn't even in that frequency set, but it was a strong enough signal to bleed across that frequency set. And I said, Brad, and my name popped up on the ghost box. And they were like, ooh, it said Brad. And it's like, yeah, that's me. That was just me on the radio here. But,
see,
you
that's
know,
crazy. And and another thing too, um, when you have a recorder or you're, doing EVPs, let's just say you take the whole spirit box out of it, you know, I mean, this is why people don't record all the time because they don't want to sit and listen to nothing, right?
that's right.
And that's what I do. I've sat and listened to 8 hours of a recording one time because I let my recorder go the entire time. People are like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I feel like
Well,
I
we
need to
let
do that, right?
all of our recorders go that long. I mean, we'll run sometimes upwards of 10 recorders at a location, and they're all
Yes.
going that long.
Yeah. And
So yeah,
yeah, so for me, I'm like, how can you like in like so if you say like, okay, the recorder was real time, right? So in real time, and this is me just hypothetically saying, in real time, it's not picking anything up. But yet you turn this little thing on that's scanning radio frequencies and you're having a conversation. You're back and forth having a conversation. I don't believe it. Like
well, the thing that the people don't realize is that the ghost boxes they have now were, it's loosely based on the Frank's box, and the Frank's box was actually a good idea. They could actually adjust the radio to certain frequencies as they go through. They're just like a guy listening to shortwave, listening for somebody on a shortwave radio. They're going through there, and if they hit on something that's kind of odd, they could leave it there on that frequency, and then they go and then they could do other analysis on it. You get an oscilloscope on it. You could see, if there's, exactly where that signal's coming from, that kind of stuff. And that's what it was originally designed to do. The current iterations of the Ghost Box, especially the ones they use with the Estes method, is crap. And people are going to throw eggs at me because of that, but it is because you don't know what you're getting, you don't understand what you're getting, and you can't possibly say, even if it was a communication with the other side, who you're really talking to. It's
right.
like being in a chat room, right? Old school chat room where you have some old guy sitting on a bed talking to a bunch of 16-year-old
You're
old
getting
girls in a
ghost
chat
fish.
room.
You're getting ghost
Yeah,
fish.
that's it. So it's kind of crazy. So yeah, that right there is why I just can't buy into that. But there'd have to be a whole lot of experimentation and research into that whole radio frequency thing before you could even try to use something like a ghost box.
Yeah, I can't do it. I'm not a fan of all that stuff. So I do have, a couple of trigger props. I have a cat and I have a train because, just for I don't know, and there were some things that happened. Like I don't put too much weight into that stuff, But I've been at a couple of places recently where, like Octagon Mansion in Wytheville, Virginia. It was just me and the owner, and we were, doing an EV. We were in the library, and we're like, trying, and I don't understand. I've welcomed so many people to watch it and tell me what they think, because I don't know the equipment that well. So I don't, um, he had a couple of REM pods. I had my trigger props. I know how they work. You know what I mean? But I don't know, you know, and it seemed as if there was intelligent interaction with the equipment. And I've never seen it that, like, it happened that so much. Like, it was just so obvious that we were getting this. Like, I was like, oh, hug. Now Zeus is my trigger prop cat, so I was like, give Zeus a hug. If you hug him, his collar lights up. 3 seconds later, the whole collar's lighting up.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, touch which piece of equipment is your favorite. The train goes off. And it's just one of them. And then it's like, can you set all three off at the same time? All three go off. I'm like, are you doing something? Like, I started to blame the guy I was investigating with. I'm like, are you doing something? What is happening? I'm like, how is this happening? Because nothing like that's ever happened with the equipment to me. And then I had somebody come on, Jay Hill, and he was kind of like, I had him once, he was like on my live, so you could hear it was almost like you could hear him in the location with us. And he's like, okay, make the equipment, both of them go off, 3 times, 3 separate times, and then stop. It did it, Brad. They did it, and this was in a different location. And then he goes,
That's called an interactive response, is what that is.
it was insane. And then he goes, okay, just make one go off. Only one went off. And we're laughing. Like, I'm like, what is going on? And then he goes, okay, thank you. Back off of that. It stopped. He goes, make the other one go off. The other one went, I'm not even kidding you. It's on live. I have the whole thing on live. And I'm like, I want anybody to watch this, please, and tell me what you think. If it isn't anything, great. Okay. I welcome the feedback. I want the feedback. Because it was so, like I said, I can't explain it. So, because I don't know any better. You know what I mean? Like, I know how the equipment works, but I don't know the specifics. I don't know. And I know I should, or, I get it, but I don't, because I don't use it that often. So, it was definitely, I mean, to the point where, so he had something I've never seen used before. It was, for lack of a better description, a doorbell. So it was like this doorbell piece, and then there was like a speaker thing. So you have to press the doorbell, and then, the sound comes out of the speaker. And they were calling it a communicator, but it was a doorbell. And he left it in the dining room while we were in the library. And all of a sudden, and let me tell you this too, the equipment was going off only when we were asking questions or addressing who we thought was there, or what was there, right? If we were talking amongst ourselves, or we were like doing something else, it wasn't doing anything. And then, so it got to a point where it was like this big heightened, it happened for like, a couple minutes, and then it kind of got dead, for no pun intended, but got dead. So I said, if you're in another room, can you knock on something, make a noise, let us know where you're at, we'll come in there. And a minute later, the doorbell goes off in the dining room. And I said, I'm fucking leaving. I'm like, I don't even know what's going on here, but this is crazy. I've never had anything like this happen. I'm like, and I can't explain it. It was
That's that stuff, that kind of stuff, is pretty interesting. We have to be careful when we look at that kind of stuff too, because it could be, believe it or not, a lot of people, this isn't a popular opinion, but it could be coincidence. But some of it could be, but some of it may not be. So you have to really take a hard look at everything that happened. You have to look at it over time too. And then if you do it over time, then you can pull the statistics on it, and if it's becomes statistically significant, then you might be onto something. But if it's not, you have to put it over here, and then you have to hope that later you get the same kind of thing, then the same kind of thing, then the same kind of thing. And that's the nature of the scientific method. That's why we're Oh, see you later,
Yeah,
Aaron.
I'm
Good to.
not going to keep Brad much longer. His wife is probably so mad at me because I've
Yeah, she's already in bed, I think, and my
oh,
kid's
I'm
definitely in
sorry.
bed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But that's okay. But yeah, we have to do that kind of analysis on stuff like that. A single event like that, well, interesting and really cool,
Yeah.
is it. For if you want to do the analysis, you got to get your statistics on it, and that can take some time.
Yeah.
And that's why we're having trouble right now. We only had that one incident with the electromagnetic pulse, so we're trying to gather more data, hoping we get that again. But
Right.
it hasn't happened for the last few years. The last time we got it was right after the pandemic. Was the first time, was the only time we really got it. So the last few years we've been trying, but it hasn't popped up. So it just takes a long time. If that the cool thing though is that yes, you may not be able to do any kind of statistical analysis on it, but it is anomalous enough that it's a single incident and it stands out among everything. So that right there is something to target your experiment on.
Right.
Right there, you run your experiments around that, and then you can move on, and hopefully you can figure something out from that. I'd love to run a set of experiments. You say that's at Octagon?
Octagon
Is where you
Mansion.
had
Yeah.
to?
What?
Yeah,
Yeah. Whiteville, Virginia.
we've never been there, but it's yeah. The problem is that when you places that have a lot of like public investigations and stuff, it's hard to do the hardcore research in a location like that.
Yeah.
But still, though, we would love to run those kind of the experiments. Design a whole set of experiments around something like exactly what you experienced.
It
Yeah,
was
because-
insane. And I say that because I can't explain it, but I mean maybe somebody can explain it. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm like, please, I want somebody to watch it and tell me what they think, but I haven't gotten that much feedback from it. People that were watching were like, "Oh my god, that's so cool! I can't believe this is happening." Like people were watching and were agreeing with us, and then actually being in the moment, because I know you had brought this up way earlier, but being in the moment, in the environment, because I even say that I'm like, I don't know if it's because I was in the moment and I was, all this is happening, and or if there's really some sort of interaction happening that I've never experienced before. I've been doing it 15 years. I've never had those experience. I've never had that with equipment because I'm always poo-pooing the equipment away. I'm always like, oh, no, whatever. But this was like intelligently answering or interacting, should I say?
yeah.
So, um, I feel so bad. This conversation could keep going. I mean, you're one
Oh,
of my
forever and a
favorites.
day.
I love having you on. I love hearing all about all your stuff, and um, I hope one day I get to at least just hang out with you guys and watch you guys work and do stuff. I mean, I, I would love to see how you guys operate. I know one last quick question, I promise, and that's it. The last time we talked, you said that you guys don't go to a building and invest and do your experiments in the whole building. You focus on one particular spot, or this and that. Do you still do that? Is that still your?
Well, we try to target the experiments. We either target the experiments at a particular activity or a particular spot or location or both. We just, whatever the experiment, whatever, if we come up with the theory and then we design an experiment around that. When you design the experiment around that, it may tell us to just stay in the stairwell because that's where the theory points us. Or it may tell us we need to put something in every single room to see if we can narrow down a location, that kind of stuff. So it depends on the experimental design. A lot of this depends on the experimental design. And that takes a lot of doing, sit down looking at all the reports of activity or, historical aspects of the house, the architecture of the house, that kind of stuff. Because we actually have an architect too a historic architect as part of our organization too that also brings a lot to the table.
Is that
Along with
Aaron?
Aaron.
Oh, no,
No,
no, no,
Aaron's the
Aaron's the archaeologist.
archaeologist.
You have a historic
The
architect. What a cool job that would be.
Yeah, and she
Oh,
works with the Department of Transportation here, and they have to go to all kinds of different locations because if they're going to build a road through a place, and you gotta determine, is this house, is it, do we need to tear this house down? Do we not need to tear
How
this
does
down?
she
That
say
kind of thing.
yes to any of it?
I know, exactly. I don't think she does. Her husband's an archaeologist too, so
Oh,
that's
so
what's really cool.
cool. That's so cool. Um,
Well,
oh, I had one quick question. Now I forgot it. So, hopefully it gets back to me. But, um, I absolutely love, you know, your whole how you guys do your thing. And I just hope one day I get to do it with you guys, or at least watch and see it, because I find it so fascinating. Um,
well, you're welcome anytime you want to.
yeah,
We're Mark Higgins, who was on earlier.
yeah,
He's been with us a couple of times.
yeah.
We actually, when we went to that battlefield with the Klings, we actually conducted investigative work in the house along with them. They did their thing, we did our thing, and it was really cool to see. We had a we have a we have an RV that one of our folks has, that we call it the Paranormal Emergency Response Vehicle,
Mm.
PERV, PERV, and and we
Love
were calling
it.
it's like Brad to Perv, Brad to Perv. Did you hear that? Did you catch that on the recorder? Brad, this is
I
Perv. No,
love
we did
it.
not catch it.
That's great.
It was
That's
funny.
great.
But yeah, we work with all kinds of different people. And John Sable, if you ever meet that guy, we actually did some work with him. He has a theory about the imprints on the environment and how you can peel back layers of history at an environment by basically acting out those time frames, and with
Very
actors and
cute.
stuff. And he's done it, and we've witnessed it, and it actually, we cannot figure out what the heck just happened, because at Bacon's Castle, he went in, they did their thing. Lo and behold, voices popped up in every room around us, and the voices stayed. Now get this, for 10 minutes.
Wow.
Constant. It was like a murmur going on all around us, and we're all like
Wow.
stunned. And that's all because of what he did. And so we used to, we never thought that would work, but lo and behold, it does. So we have a lot of respect for John, and he's a nice guy, and his significant other, Mary, is even nicer, and he used to be an actor. He was in the 1984 version of Dune. He was a bad guy in a Timothy Dalton, James Bond movie. That kind of stuff. But he's also an archaeologist.
Oh, that's cool.
And so, yeah, he's done some really cool stuff in that too. So, we work with a lot of different people. So if you're interested, let me know, and then we can let you know. And if you're willing to make the trip wherever we are, you're sure welcome to be there.
Yeah, for
We're
sure.
all over Virginia. Now, we've been other places too. Like I said, we were at Pennhurst. We've gone.
I wish I would have known you were going to Pennhurst.
Well, that was a long time. That was a long time ago. That was like 2014 time frame.
Yeah.
We've been on the USS North Carolina. They asked us to come down there and because they were starting to see things down there in that area where the torpedo hit. So we did some work down there. By the way, we ran 5 miles of cable on that ship, and that was insane.
I hear it's big.
Yeah, but yeah, we work with a lot of different people. So come on.
Yes, I would love
to.
I would love to.
Okay.
Brad, thank you so much for your time. You
For
are
sure.
amazing.
It's always a pleasure.
I love having you
Thank
on.
you.
Next time we can't make it go so long. We can't make it go so long.
Well, that's true. We need to pick a topic.
I know. Well, no. I mean, go so long before you come back on again.
Oh yeah. Just let me know when you need me, and I'll come back on. I think that I think it's pretty cool. Hey, it's the name. That's exactly right, Brad. That's exactly right. Yeah, Brad and Barry were so cool to hang with that time when they were down there. It was just entirely the best. It was the best time.
I don't know Barry. I don't know Barry. I know Brad. I don't know Barry that well, but Brad, I absolutely adore Brad. I mean, we have had some really good combos. He's been on a couple of times. He's great. I love him.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy,
And
And
that's where I learned the error cues from. That's what I was going to ask you, because you were saying you had the guy come in, and I said, like, error cues, like how I remember when Kling Brothers came, when I'm sorry, Ghost Lab started, and I started watching them, and I'm like, that was my other favorite show. It was Ghost Hunters and Ghost Lab, and I loved how Ghost Lab went in there and they kind of like did the whole error cues thing, and I'm like, wow, that's cool, and I started doing that. I would go to Gettysburg and I would
yeah,
play music from the 1860s and 18s, or stuff like that, just to kind of see. I would dress up in period dress out there, and see what, because here I come, I got a tank top on, these short shorts, my sneakers, and you think you're going out there to kind of like, you're already thinking, oh, I'm going to connect with people from like the Civil War era and maybe even earlier. They're probably looking at you like, what is she wearing? And
yeah,
stuff like that. I think one time we picked up an EVP because I had a long jacket on, and the long jacket kind of, it went down to my ankles, so it kind of like looked like a dress. And like the EVP we got, or whatever it was that we picked up, and we asked a question. We're like, do you want to talk to us? And it was like, the one in the dress. So,
there
like,
you go.
so they saw it. It looked like a dress to them. You know what I mean? But we were like, the one in the dress, like nobody's wearing a dress. And then somebody was like, T, your jacket looks like a dress. It goes all the way down to your ankles, and you know what I mean? And I was like, oh yeah, like, so that
Yeah.
was cool. But anyway,
Well, I mean, well, thanks, Alan. And I wanted to tell you that I'll holler at you. That's a West Virginia thing. We will definitely holler at each other.
oh, that's a Philly
Uh,
thing too. Well, I'm from
but
Jersey.
there you go. But the Ghost Lab show was also, we kind of got the idea to blanket the area with sensors and stuff,
Yes.
from that show.
Yeah.
And because it's like, that was a really good idea,
Yeah.
so that's why we do that. And so that I could always thank Brad and Barry for
Oh,
instilling
I
that
love.
idea.
Yep, I loved. That's the only two shows I watched was Ghost Hunters and Ghost Lab. That was it.
Yep.
That was my
Same
thing.
here. That was it. That was
Yeah.
it.
Um. All right, I will let you go. Oh my gosh,
Okay.
I've had you forever. Um. We have to plan another date in the future for you to come on, and if anybody else on your team wants to come on with you, I would love to have whoever on.
Oh yeah. I'm
I
sure
would
they
love
would.
to have you guys on and talk about what you guys do in the team, and all that stuff, and just hear everybody's different experiences and experiments, and all that stuff. So maybe we can plan a CPRI party. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
that'd be great.
yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to have you guys on. So talk to them and see, who would be willing to do it, and maybe we can set something up, and even if it's off in the future, at least we have like a date and something. You know what I mean? That you guys can come
Oh
on.
yeah.
Um,
All right.
it has been an absolute pleasure.
Well, the pleasure's mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Please thank your wife for
I will.
letting me have you for 2 hours.
Okay.
And
I will do that.
thank you so much, Brad. And I look forward to talking to you and hopefully hanging out with you one day, and then you coming back on the show.
That'd be great.
Good
Thanks
night,
again.
dear. Good night.
Hey, good
Thank you.
night. Hey.
That was great. He's awesome. If you guys please go check out, he said look up Robert Bradley. Go check him out. Go check his pages out. Go CPRI, and it was academia dot. Let me see. I put it up there. Dot edu, I think, is what it was. But I did put academia dot edu. It's in the comments. Go check that out. Great group, awesome group. Have a lot of respect for them. Oh, rewatch it. Yes, it's a good one. You'll be happy. Um, so join me next week. This weekend I'll be at Penhurst Paracon. I will be working it, so I will try to go live as much as I can. But like again, I am working it. I'm working the ghost hunts. I'm working the lines. I'm working, the VIP parties. So and so I will be doing that. Next week I'm on the wrong month. Next week I have the guy coming on that is actually restarting up the Gettysburg reenactments. Totally different show for Paranormal Brew, but as Gettysburg is my favorite place on earth, I will welcome anything Gettysburg. So I have the guy that's coming on that is running the revamped new Gettysburg reenactments, the yearly annual reenactments for Gettysburg. He'll be on. We're going to be talking, which I am also volunteering my time to help out there as well. So I hope you guys join me. And that's it for all. And I will see you guys Wednesday, hopefully. Thank you guys for coming on. Uh-huh.